I will call the meeting to order. The first order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. If you could stand if you're able, and join.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everybody. Good evening, excuse me, and welcome to our meeting. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Does anyone wish to comment on anything not on tonight's agenda? Seeing no one, I'll move on. Discussion? Mr. McCarthy, how are you today? Good. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Last week, the Student Council engaged in the MASC Spring Conference, better known as Hyannis. 25 students plunged into the ocean, raising over $2,000 for the Special Olympics of Massachusetts, performed a mashup lip sync, and learned what leadership really means. Congratulations to Chase Holyoke for being elected CMASC delegate on the MASC board, as well as to Ian Gilson for his year of service as MASC president. And as always, thank you to Mr. Pelletier and the 5 TV Pro students who produced a truly breathtaking video recapping the conference. Congratulations to the band, orchestra, concert choir, and Sachem Singers for a phenomenal Pops concert last Friday. This Monday after school, we held a town meeting to discuss plans for the walkout originally planned for yesterday, the 14th, but postponed due to the weather. Thank you to all who participated in the healthy dialogue, and to Mr. Lynch, Chief Perkins, Chief Benjamino, MHS administration, and many faculty members from around the school for their support. In memory of the 17 victims who died from a senseless act of violence at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, hundreds of students and faculty walked out of the old bus lobby into the cafeteria and up to the auditorium, where 17 students read biographies of the victims, and we had a minute of reflection for each one. This was a touching act of nonpartisan love in the wake of such a tragedy, and it was great to see the power when a school community comes together. Tomorrow we will be signing a banner to send to Parkland, mailing our love and Sachem pride to a place in need. Thank you to all involved, especially the students who coordinated and executed the lockout, the MHS staff and administration for their cooperation and support, and for Chief Perkins and Chief Benjamino, as well as Middleborough Police and Fire Departments for their crucial roles. And Corey Pooler, a recent MHS graduate, has been to Guatemala and back several times for service trips. This April, he's running the Boston Marathon to help these communities in Guatemala, and MHS is having a Make-A-Wish Minute on March 22nd in order to support his cause. We're very proud of Corey for his leadership and service. Thank you.
Thank you, Owen. Does anyone have any questions for Owen? Owen, did you enjoy the walkout? And obviously not the point about the conversation about the victims, but more about the doing something, I guess, for lack of better terms.
Very respectful and solemn experience, and it gave us all an opportunity to reflect on something we may take for granted, but these kids didn't get to leave that school that day, so it was a very valuable experience.
I would also add that I do want to thank Mr. Brannigan and Mr. Lynch. Especially today, most of the schools participated in it yesterday across the nation, and you saw some sort of backlash for places that, for lack of better terms, I don't want to use the word embrace, but we're part of it and part of the planning and part of making it important, not only in the lives of the students, but I think in the lives of everybody who's a part of the school and first responders and everything like that. So I want to thank the administration for being a part of it and not, it's very interesting. I think we all got the same email and memo from MASC, which was this lengthy list from the MASC attorney about various protocols and what you couldn't do and what you could do, and it was just, it was very comprehensive, and it was list after list after list after list of about 5 pages long, which in the time I've been on this committee, I've never seen a memo come out 5 pages long, just listing what you had to be careful with and what you had to do, and I think the administration really walked that line and did a really nice job and made it special for those who did it, and I appreciate that. So I just want to say that up front.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
if you don't mind, I think it's important to note that this was basically entirely student-run. It was organized by the president of MASC. It was also organized by the president of the student government and representatives from the student council. It was extremely well done. It was a solemn moment. It was a nonpartisan moment, but it was a moment to express sympathy to those victims and have a moment of silence for each of those victims, including the adults who risked their lives in that situation too. So I thought it was very well done, and I'm very, very proud of the students at Middleborough High School through obviously Mr. Brannigan's guidance and the faculty at the high school. But I was there, I was present outside and inside, extremely well done, nonpartisan, and just filled with Middleborough pride for those students who participated in that today. And it was basically almost the entire student body, maybe save for a couple of students. So. And I also wanted to mention, you mentioned Corey Pooler. Corey's a class of 2016. You'll see Corey every once in a while. There was a story in the Gazette recently on him, but he also makes the Dean's List every semester, and he's out at Westfield State, but he's taken this on personally as a fundraiser and continues to do that and make us proud again as a graduate of Middleborough High School. So awesome and great, and thanks for mentioning Corey. That's great.
Thanks, Owen. Any questions for Owen before I move on? Thank you, Owen. I really appreciate it. Any reports from school committee members? Hearing none, I will move on. Mr. Catino, I would offer your opportunity. Thank you. I like your tie today, sir.
Good evening. So yesterday we missed Pi Day, so
Absolutely.
I had to wear my Euclid tie today, Father of Geometry, in honor of Pi Day. So, always have to throw that out. My honors geometry class, I was like, they had no idea who Euclid was until I told them. So it's always good to learn.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to add to the everybody else's comments on the walkout today. I did go into the auditorium and listen to everything. It was by far the most respectful, honorable thing I've ever seen the students do, and I know that it was entirely run by the students. It was just a great thing, very, very moving. So anyway, I don't have anything else. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Frank. Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'll move on. Next item on the agenda is superintendent's report. Mr. Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'd like to invite Mr. Paul Brannigan down to the podium or to the seat, the microphone. My number one item on my report is the scholarship booklet addition, and I felt it most appropriate that Mr. Brannigan introduced this scholarship, and it's been talked about a little bit in a couple of previous meetings, but this is the formal ask for the school committee to accept this this effort on the part of the scholarship committee, the Dollars for Scholars, to name a scholarship in the name of Scott Nelson, recently retired and unfortunately deceased member of the Middleborough High School faculty, a very important part of the community. So, Mr. Brannigan, if you wouldn't mind sort of introducing the scholarship.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Lynch, for allowing me the honor to be able to present this workshop to you for your approval. And a special thanks to the Nelson family for collaborating with Dollars for Scholars to bring this scholarship to life. If you'd allow me to read you the description. It is a Scott and Ellie Nelson Memorial Scholarship. Mr. Scott and Ellie Nelson was the beloved science teacher, department head, and coach at Middleborough High School. Nellie was unique in that he grew up in Middleborough, graduated from Middleborough High School, and following college worked his entire professional career at Middleborough High School, mentoring many students, faculty, staff, coaches, and players. In addition to teaching and coaching at MHS, Nellie worked summers at the park department. Nellie was committed to his students and was always there to mentor, give advice, and maintain a calming influence through difficult times. His focus and commitment to MHS and the town were unwavering. To those who truly knew him, he is missed for his guidance and support. Applicants for this scholarship must be a senior at Middleborough High School, have a college, university application status of accepted or attending, majoring in biology, participated in athletics at Middleborough High School, and have demonstrated financial need. The awardee must submit an official transcript upon completion of the first semester and a copy of next semester's bill. This $1,000 award will be payable by check to the scholarship recipient. And it is with great pleasure to present to you the Memorial Scholarship for Mr. Nelson, and we hope that you'll accept it so we can add it to the booklet. Thank you.
Chair would entertain a motion to accept the scholarship.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Second. Discussion. I do want to say a couple things. First of all, thank you for bringing that to us, Paul. Paul, I assume that if people would like to make donations to Mr. Nelson's Memorial Scholarship, they can do that. Can you tell them how they could do that?
I believe they do that directly through Dollars for Scholars. That all of the proceeds through the donations would go right into that account for to be able to foster that scholarship for years to come.
And Mr. Chair, if they memo the check, just indicate that they would like the money to go towards the Scott Nelson Scholarship, that would be appropriate.
I would just like to say a personal piece that it's interesting because, as I said previously, my daughter did not have Mr. Nelson. But come senior year, Mr. Nelson met with her to go over scholarship opportunities for her that he would look online for kids and really try to work out and make sure that kids knew about, that were outside of our scholarship booklet. And I know he did that with lots of other kids. He didn't have to do that, but he really felt committed to the kids of Middleborough. And although it's very sad that Middleborough lost Mr. Nelson, I think this is a perfect opportunity of somebody who, that we can give back in Mr. Nelson's name so that kids in Middleborough can long understand who Scott Nelson was. And so, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Lynch, do you want to say anything?
I just would agree with everything Paul said in terms of the importance and the role that Scott Nelson played through the years. As a student, as a comedian, as a young teacher, as a teacher that was a department head late in his career, but an effective one, and that was an important role that Scott played, mentoring young teachers, just as he was mentored in his early days. So he really learned a lesson from that. But Scott was a few years ahead of me in high school, but I was always at that point where I sort of followed his career out to Westfield. It was at Westfield, I believe?
You went to Fitchburg.
Yeah, Fitchburg State College, and returned and started his coaching career and his teaching career in Middleborough, and he stuck around, and that doesn't happen a lot, and it's quite admirable. So, and just his whole persona, his whole personality was everything to me, and really was a contributing factor to a positive culture at Middleborough High School throughout the years. So.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion or comments? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much, Paul, for that.
Thanks, Paul. And Mr. Paul Brannigan is down here to report out a couple of things. Number one, his update on his school improvement plan for this year, and perhaps some of his plans for next year a little hint maybe. And also he's going to talk about the latest submission of the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, or NEASC, a report that was submitted recently with Mr. Wilbur, who was the chair of that committee at Middleborough High School. Right. So, Paul, if you want to go from one into the other, that's
Sure.
fine. I will not interrupt.
Great, thank you. It's a pleasure to give you some just modest updates in regards to our school improvement plan for this year. As Mr. Lynch had said, that this is a document that begins the writing of next year's document. But what is so interesting is that now that we have a brand new high school on the horizon, it really does become a very kind of futuristic school improvement plan that you'll begin to see. We're beginning to create a protocol called Project 2021, which will begin the systems of really how do you, once the building is built, well, how do you go into the building and really make sure that we can use the building and we can take off and running. So we're excited to finalize our plan that we'll bring to you over the next many weeks to be able to gain your approval for 2018-19. But before we get to that, just some updates for you in regards to this year's plan. In this year's plan, we have 9 goals. Some are a little bit more lofty than others. We were very calculated in regards to keeping certain items on our school improvement plan. For example, facilities that you will see, our NEASC, our 21st century learning. And some of them have been areas that we have had over the years, but just it is molded into different things depending upon where we're at. Once we hit a benchmark and said, all right, we've met that goal, now we have to say, well, what's the next step of that goal now? How do you build it even bigger? So our first goal that you see is leveling, and just some really overarching pieces in this particular goal we're continuing the work throughout all the content areas of what our leveling practices are. So a student who starts in 9th grade honors, what does that look like when they go to 10th grade honors and 11th grade honors and 12th grade honors, to make sure that the trajectory of that program is really complementing from year to year. And then to that point as well is really looking at a student who makes the leap from a college preparatory program into the honors program, or an honors program into advanced placement. So that is ongoing work, but it's important work to make sure that we're calibrating consistently. Also, the infusion of our literacy plan, which is an important document for us. It has come a long way in regards, and you'll see this in a few minutes, but this leveling piece is really looking at what does reading and writing and speaking and reasoning look like across the board as a student is in the college preparatory 9th grade program, and what that looks like as they transcend through the grades. Common assessment practices throughout the all content areas, which is an important aspect of it, because if we're saying the fact that the curriculum, no matter what level you're in, is the curriculum, we need to make sure that those common assessment practices are also equal in scope to that as well. And that how does that equate to what college preparatory student into an honors level program as well. And then also something that we're doing some work this year on in particular is really looking at our leveling assignments. As you know, at the high school, it is a student-driven schedule, so that the teacher recommendations come second, that the students choose their levels, they choose the courses they want to be in, they collaborate with their parents and guardians, and then from that point, we then go through the process and say, you know what, you really made some great choices, or we think you didn't shoot for the moon high enough, or potentially, are you sure you wanted to go into this course? And then basically we work with the students from that perspective rather than us telling them where they should be. And it has worked really well. However, we want to make sure the fact that where students are selecting, that we're doing our due diligence to make sure that it's correct, and really challenging a student or a parent to be able to say, are you sure this is where you want them to be? Here's our reason and rationale as to why we're considering or recommending a potentially different level for this particular course per se. So that's our highlights of leveling. In our curriculum, which is an ongoing, this is a goal that I will tell you will probably be in our improvement plan for many years to come, because it is a constant continuum of work. We're proud to say the fact that this has been a year that we've done a lot of work in our stage 2 and stage 3 of understanding by design in all of our content areas. But really, most importantly, which we're really quite excited by, is the second bullet, which is the infusion of our 21st century learning expectations into the curriculum of all areas. If you were to look at what we believe is the 21st century learner, it was really a mandate to our content areas to ensure the fact that we appreciate the state standards, we appreciate your content, but you need to make sure that in some way, shape, or form that we're embedding 21st century learning into actually our content and our curriculum. And we're proud to say that that is something you would see in all of our curriculum as well. In terms of literacy, we created this goal strictly because we had a really, I think, a robust literacy plan. However, what was interesting is that when we enacted the plan, it was really a plan that was one size fits all. And we realized very quickly that literacy in one content area doesn't always match another. So we went back to the drawing board and took the fundamentals of the literacy plan and really allowed the content areas to say, how does reading look in math, in writing look in science, and so on, and so on. And you'll notice the fact that in this particular goal for this year, it has really taken all of the strands of our literacy plan and how has it been incorporated into all facets of our programming. And you'll see those strands of reading, writing, speaking, and reasoning. How does it look in math compared to science, compared to English, compared to the arts? And we're really proud of what the teachers and what our content areas have been able to do. Also, the second one, that second bullet is an ongoing one, and this is one you're going to see next year for the next year's plan, because it's really a critical juncture that we're at. We were not able to create a formal renewal plan for our curriculum because, keep in mind, we didn't have written curriculum. So we needed to really make sure we had all of that in good form, and now that we do, or close to, now we have to begin the process of, well, now we have a living document, how to make sure we don't fall into the same boat we were in, where we just had curriculum sitting on a shelf that was never looked at and reviewed. So that particular goal is part of our process now, and I will tell you that it will be coming back to you for your approval in 1819, of really looking at that formal curriculum renewal process that we need to do. And lastly, just the engagement of our accountability plan. If you were to look at our accountability plan this year, the entire document is infused with the literacy objectives and the core standards of literacy. And we're really happy with what we've been seeing in literacy across the building. And that's just a highlight of really that particular strand for you. Our 21st century learning, I will tell you, this is one that personally I am most proud of. The work that has been done in this area has been really quite significant. The Senior Archive Project, which was launched with this year's 9th grade class. It's important to give you a little bit of context of this program, and I know I came to you last spring with a little bit of a sense of really what this is. But our 21st century learning expectations were really designed in a way when we went through our NEASC report, which I'll share with you in a little while. We all adopted rubrics, so we adopted expectations. So math had so many, and science had so many, and English had so many, and that's how we were running our ship. What we found was the fact that that was really just not a wise move, because teachers were doing critical thinking all over the place. And to say that it was only something that was going to be measured, say, in math, or problem solving was only going to be done in math, didn't seem to allow students to be able to see the transferable skills that they could have. So we kind of threw the whole thing out and started all over again and said, if these were our 21st century learning expectations, they really should be across the board every place. So a student can do problem solving in history and in foreign language and the arts and so on. And this archive project is really what we have created as our way of saying that our students have to own their learning. So this archive project has started with this year's 9th grade. It was launched in December of 2017. Where basically we had a team of teachers, Mr. Kinney, Mrs. Kubik, with the help of Louise Bertelli, really helping create the foundation of this. And it's all being done through Google Slides. And the students with their one-to-one initiative, that they're really now telling their story of what it means to be a 21st century learner. Using the school-wide learning expectations and their rubrics, the students throughout their full-year journey will show examples in their own words through athletics, through service work, through their academics, of really their story of how they've become a 21st century learner. And that we launched it with this year's 9th grade class, and it will be ongoing as a graduation requirement as we move forward with the graduation classes to come. With that being said, we needed to also redesign all of our rubrics. It is important to note that our rubrics were really designed in a lot of rush in 2011-12 into 2013. When we knew that these rubrics had to be something that were going to be our breathing and living document, we had to really do a lot of work to redesign them. And this summer, we had a team of teachers come together and really do something quite progressive. They created the 1-point rubric, where basically we gave the students really the expectation. Instead of having the 4-point rubric, you would have exemplary to fair or to not meeting expectation. We gave them the expectation. This is what we expect out of a student. And on one side, it became student ownership, where the student was really going to say, this is how I've met this expectation, and this is what I've done. And the teacher also has the opportunity to give way in as well. And we're really finding that we've asked all teachers through every content area to use these rubrics where they see applicable. And the student engagement of these rubrics as well has been quite significant, and we're quite proud of that. Also, our 21st Century Learning Conference, which I know we shared with you back in the fall, which was a huge success at the high school, and we're very proud of the collaborative effort of our community members and also our teachers to bring that learning conference to life. And really just the continued growth of the one-to-one. We've had it since the fall of 2016, and I'll tell you, it's every student is using their laptop. Teachers are engaging more and more. They're taking those risks in the classroom as teachers, but also then the students are taking those risks as well. And a lot of that is being done through our faculty expositions that are held every month. Our guidance counseling and our guidance and counseling goal, this has been an ongoing goal, and I want to make sure there's context to this. That in 2013, our guidance department in particular was really given some real significant orders for a huge revamp. And since then, we have had a goal for guidance in our school improvement plan each and every year, and how far they've come. You'll notice just some of the bullets. We've done a real enhancement of our college planning workshops to grade 11. It is now a 3-part series that is quite robust. Our very first one was held the beginning of February. We had a panel presentation of a private college and a public college. Stonehill and Bridgewater, their admissions directors came in as part of the panel, a senior who's going through the process as well as a parent. And it was really quite a comprehensive workshop that was done, and that's the first of 3 series, of a 3 workshop series of our college planning. as well as the College Boot Camp, which we're very proud to continue to run. Our Future Strong program, which I'll show you just a sample of that in just a moment, but we have been very successful of launching a Future Fridays program where we launch a Career of the Week that is based upon student input from the year before. Tammy Miller, our college and career specialist, has done an outstanding job of finding career specialists to come in each and every week. And students during their lunch block can go into the library to learn about different careers, especially those that interest them. Some have been more popular than others, but each and every one, it has had a student or two who have gone in to say, I'm really interested in that field and I want to learn more about it. And I'll show you a graphic that we've created that goes along with that. The alumni network that we started and kind of fostered this fall, and now we're kind of navigating the data to be able to determine, well, now what do you do with that information that you've collected from hundreds of alumni that have said, I want to be a part of the process and I want to be a mentor to students, which has been wonderful. Our use of Naviance has increased significantly. The guidance department has done an outstanding job of their engagement with Naviance. Significant use. The communication with families is constant because you have an online portal that you can constantly update and send out emails to families and to students. And also the beginnings now of our reviewing, the beginning of the senior internship program. This will be one here that I will tell you to give a little preview. You will see upcoming in the new school improvement plan. As we're preparing ourselves to move into a new high school, we need to take a good hard look at how we're engaging our senior interns and what do those look like and what are the partnerships and stakeholders that we currently have, but also the new ones potentially we can engage as well. I just want to show you this week's, it's maybe a little bit fuzzy, but this week's Career of the Week is Fish and Game Wardens and Natural Resource Officers. And we have a gentleman coming in to spend the day with us tomorrow. This is a graphic that goes out each and every week to our students through social media, as well as posters that are blown up that are in the front lobby as well, and just a sample of our Future Strong program. Health and wellness. This is one that has a little bit of a slow start, but we're really excited about next week. Our Wellness Strong program will officially kick off with our Wellness Week that will happen next week. I've given you a little bit of a sample of the days to come, and I'll share with you just some highlights of that. But we've taken an opportunity through our work, through our child study team, as well through our faculty expositions where applicable, to make sure that we're providing wellness opportunities to our students and staff. And this particular week has been the brainchild of a team of counselors that have come together to really put together a great week for our students. And I just want to share with you some highlights. We have therapy dogs coming in for each and every day next week. That a special thanks to Mrs. Kubik for arranging that. They'll be in Barry's Corner through all 4 lunches so that students can go in and learn about therapy dogs and interact with the therapy dogs. And the team that is coming can take up to 30 students at one time. So we'll kind of rotate the kids in and out, but they'll have an opportunity every day next week to be able to experience that. Also, we'll have music in the CAF, Mindful Mondays. We're doing a digital detox day. We'll see how that goes to see if students can do something with their digital life. We have an essential oil specialist coming in to do some work with kids to be able to examine that kind of mindfulness. Tiki Tuesday is sun safety, and it's a tropical day, Hawaiian lays, and just really looking at getting kids outside. And unfortunately, it's 2 feet of snow, but we're still going to try to get them outside. Workout Wednesday. We're going to do some kind of active lunchtime during their lunch period and working with teachers to see if they would engage with us to have a break right after lunch, that they would have some rest time and to kind of be able to kind of look at how their bodies respond to that. And also a Thankful Thursday, which is going to be a whole day about gratitude. And then what's important to note is on Friday, we're doing we're so thankful to the school district for allowing us to have a special day of professional development, which is a half-day PD day for us, to have a full day committed to wellness. We have teachers and outside providers coming in to run workshops for teachers, from everything from volleyball in the gym to art to nature walks to workshops about healthy living and healthy lifestyles. And that is all being done just for the faculty on that Friday. So we're quite excited for that. Our Futures program, number 7, a compliment to Josh Porter, the director. As you know, this is the transition year of our implementation to a full-year program, and we're quite proud of what that program is accomplishing this year. It's important to note that this is the very first year that our students in the Futures program have engaged in common formative and summative assessments. So they engaged in their first mid-year exams this past fall. So we're quite proud of what they've done. And lastly, just our last 2 standards, which are really quick in scope. Our NEASC report, we had a special progress report that went in September, which was part of our goals. Our 5-year report, which I'll share with you in just a moment, that was due on March 1st, and we can say with confidence that we submitted, I think, a really robust document that we're really proud of. And then, of course, our completion of our community service learning requirement. This is twofold. Not only is the requirement in place, but also the rubric that we're using is in place as well. And the goal as we move forward is that for advisors, that they would use this rubric as part of their own requirements to make sure they're giving kids credit for doing the work. So when I'm taking student council to the Jimmy Fund walk, that really what kind of reflective piece are they doing of the work that they did that day, besides making 6,000 sandwiches, the impact that they did make, and to be able to really do some reflective pieces as well in order to receive the credit that they did it. And lastly, just the facilities piece. We thought this was an important one to keep in our school improvement plan, simply just because that although we're so grateful for a new high school coming, it's also important to respect the students that are in the building that will not ever see that new school. So things that you're noticing in this piece, a new counseling center that opened off the cafeteria this fall, the completion and, of course, of all the work of the new high school project, the feasibility study, the new high school vote, and then, of course, the beginning of the design development process. It's important to know for the community that also that we have a lot of students who will never see that building. It is a constant goal in our school improvement plan to make sure that when we do have an ability to do something in the current space to make it better for the students in that school, we've been so grateful that the school district has helped us make that happen, like the new counseling center that we put in this fall. And I can take any questions you may have about the improvement plan before we go into the NEASC report.
I just have two quick ones, if that's okay, Paul. Paul, I think of everything that you listed and outlined, the piece that I constantly hear from the students the most is probably your 21st Century Learning Conference, which I think was something that I have heard over and over again from students how much they liked. And I was just wondering, do you ever see an opportunity from those mini courses that something might spring up that could be part of our program of studies?
You know, it's interesting. There, in the feedback that we had received from that conference, there were some entry points for some future work. For example, there has been some conversations about doing something in the spring, not a learning conference. I think that will be a fall event, but potentially doing some work with our outgoing seniors, and whether it be for 2000 class of 18, but more locally for 2019, being able to do some things with them about, well, now what? You've done all these life skills. We've done some survival work with you, but now what do you do? What's next for just that senior class? So maybe not yet for those courses potentially. However, I would say that some of the community partnerships that were created in that experience, I think really would lend itself to some internships and some opportunities for our students to have some very unique connections out in the community that we currently don't have.
The second one, and you're going to fall perfectly into it, which is my second question, was on the internships. And the only question I had is, I may have forgotten this, but obviously my son is going through the process now, and I didn't remember having to do a resume before. Is that new? And I would compliment that because I think that's a fantastic piece.
One of the things that we've done, in a compliment to Tammy Miller in particular, is that we've really needed to, over the last few years, really build up the capacity of what the internship program is. If we're giving students 10 credits in an internship experience, there needs to be a pretty robust document at the end. She's created the ability for students to align their work to the 21st century learning skills. The seniors have to create a portfolio of their experiences in the process, but one of the very first things they must do in the application process is to create their resume, and that's all part of what they do in the junior advisory program that they're doing from month to month. And by the time they finish that junior year, that resume is now done, so they can take it off to potential internship placements and the like as well. And also for many of our internship providers, that there's an interview that these students need to do, and that having that ability to go in with that resume is an important aspect of their next step in life. Of this is what real life is, and you need that resume to tell your story. So it's been a nice compliment to, and that's why some of the work coming in the future is really taking what we've started and to really now make it seem, what are some options that are outside just simply a placement? Could there be an opportunity for students to do real on-the-site research somewhere, that they're going to go off and do real research for a semester or for a term? And really, what does that look like for students to have multiple opportunities besides simply just an internship experience? And as we move into a new school, that will be something that we have on the horizon, that we want to make sure that for grade 12 students, that the work they are going to be doing in that new school, when they get to that 12th grade, what are the outside learning opportunities that could be created for them that will not be in that building, but they'll have the framework from the new high school to go out to actually do that as well.
Like I said, I was very impressed by that. It was the first time I saw it, so I wanted to make sure I didn't miss it last time, but thank you. Other questions for Mr. Brannigan?
Mr. Brannigan, just out of curiosity, these freshmen are now creating portfolios that will follow them all through high school. Is there any way for the parents, is it on a report card, or is there any significant way a parent could check in to see how their student is doing on that?
There is and there isn't. As part of the infancy stages of this, that there isn't any longer a report on the report card, and we're really strategic with that, at least for now. And maybe as this is a archive project that may kind of grow feet as we get more and more grades engaged with it. We found that there was a lot of challenge when we were reporting on the report card for the 21st Century Learning Expectations, because we didn't have a really good sense of calibration as what does proficient actually mean. And a student could be proficient in one semester and then they're doing the same expectation in the next semester and they're no longer proficient. So it really was not something we had a really good grasp of it. What we are hoping to do as part of this archive project is that it would be something that would be viewed by parents, because they would have access to Google Classroom, so they can see what the students are doing in their Google Slides. Also, we're hoping the fact that the work of the advisories and the students' advisors in particular, that they are becoming now really the gatekeeper of those archive projects, and they're working with students to make sure the fact, you know what, I know you're on the baseball team, and I know that big game for you was a big moment for you. Maybe that's an area that you could be talking about how you problem solved on that game or something along that line. And the hope is, or the goal is, that when these ninth graders become seniors, there would be actually an archive night where that they would actually have to be presenting what these archives have shared. What is their journey been at the high school? And for their parents to come and actually see this is what their students have done and how they've grown from coming in as that ninth grader to now going off into the world. Hope that answers your question a little bit. So you're welcome.
Chair, if I might, I just want to go back to September of 2016. We sat down with a group of about 50 or 60 folks at the Boston Tavern in a visioning session about what the new high school would look like. Mm-hmm. But I really feel that it bears mention that this became a visioning session for a new high school, but it also became a transitional plan, almost a paradigm shift for the current high school as we move towards a new high school, with the realization that we could do some things now in preparation for the future and really begin getting some of these programs in. One of the programs that comes to mind are the Pathways to Engineering grant that Dr. Gates was able to apply for and be accepted into that program. But that really formed the ed plan for the new high school, but I think when we start talking about the Center for Innovative Studies that's going to be at the new high school, we're starting to form that now, and I see that in some of these goals. If you want to comment on that just a second.
I appreciate that. It really was an opportunity for us to begin the work of transition. We made a commitment as a faculty that when we do have the good fortune of moving into a new school, that we don't want to spend 2 years trying to figure out how to work that building and how to maneuver it, that we should be able to walk in that school and be able to just get off and running with it. So some of the work in terms of our program of studies and really having every content area look at what they are doing and what we are offering and why are we offering it and how can it be different? Is there a different ability for us to be offering our program of studies and our scope and sequence that we're doing for students? And the Project Lead the Way is a prime example of that, is how are we creating very new opportunities for students to engage in the sciences and engineering very, very differently than what we're currently providing in that building. And this is allowing us to take those steps to say, well, how do you engage in a very different experience, in a very different environment, and like the internships and so on. So that visioning session that we did in that fall over those 3 days really became a great palette for us to be able to begin the process of what do we do now with the students that are in that school. And we're happy to say that there's areas that we are kind of beginning a journey with them, which is great.
And more than just a minor paradigm shift, it really changed the mindset going forward towards the new high school. And those the students that were in that, freshmen through seniors, would never see that new high school, and they realized that. But they, being transcendent, they wanted to make sure that the students of the future. But they also said, we like this, and we like, this is the way we like to learn, and so some of those paradigm shifts have been in place. So thank you, Mr. Brannigan.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brannigan. I think it's great to see you going full steam ahead with 21st century learning and say we're going to do what we can to do as much as we can here in the old building. Because I think it would be easy to say, well, we'll wait until we get to the new building, then we'll put all these great plans into place. So I just really am excited to see how much you're able to do with the existing facility and taking into account the older students who won't be fortunate enough to have that new experience. But I think when the new building comes, I think it's just going to be enhancing what you're doing versus the other way around. Like, the building's going to enhance what you're already doing and get better. So I think you're on a really good track.
I will say, just to give you a response to that, I would say that a huge reason why this has been able to be done at the high school is because of that one-to-one initiative. And I think so grateful for the ability to have that opportunity for our students, but also for the teachers. I mean, when you see their faculty expositions they're creating every month and watching them give, they're training other teachers about a new app or a new activity, those teachers are then going back into their classrooms and say, I think I have an entry point of something I haven't tried before. And for some teachers who went into that one-to-one with full steam ahead, there were others, and I would have been one of them, that a little bit more laggard. And to have those opportunities to say that it's okay to take those risks because the students are doing it with me, it has been a game changer, and it really has when you walk the halls of that building. So, thanks.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for the update on the school improvement plan, Mr. Brannigan.
So now to just share with you some of the just quick highlights of the NEASC report. I wanted to just start off with you. This is a huge benchmark for our school. When the NEASC team came in 2013, just for the community to get them up to speed, when NEASC came to do our 10-year visit in April of 2013, that summer was released our NEASC report, and that's really where the journey of a school transforming itself began. We had two benchmarks that had to be completed. One was a 2-year report that was done in 2015, and then, of course, the big report, which is the 5-year report, which is done in 2000, which was just done. In the 5-year report, NEASC expects the fact that majority of your expectations, recommendations, have been met. And this chart that I wanted to share with you is a document that was submitted as part of our 5-year report. And if you notice, the first two columns are our 2-year report. So there were 42 recommendations that NEASC identified. Now, mind you, we had many more recommendations than the 42. But through our progress reports, those were things that we're able to check off the list that we've done. But the big ticket items were these 42 recommendations. And if you notice that in 2015, we only had completed 4 of those, and we were in progress for 35. If you notice on the other side, for the 5-year report, we had completed 29 of those recommendations, and 12 are still in progress. You will notice that one is rejected, and I will share with you which one that is and the rationale as to why that was rejected. So the team felt very, very happy of what we've accomplished for this 5-year report. It's important to note that since 2013, we have a very active NEASC follow-up committee that has had many of the same people who were some of the NEASC chairs of the visit in 2013 that have remained to make sure that they were seeing our work through to the end. But I just want to share that with you. We're pretty proud of that. As you know, there are 7 standards in the NEASC process, and I thought it was important just to give you some very quick highlights of each one and our core values and learning expectations in particular. That we have done a complete review and redesign of the 7 rubrics, which I shared with you already in the school improvement plan. Also, the community service expectation. Mind you, that these highlights are actually recommendations that were given to us from NEASC. So it's just important for you to note that. And then also our continued work. This 3rd bullet we were really quite proud of, because as a part of the 5-year report, we have to show evidence of really how our school has aligned to our core values, beliefs, and learning expectations. When the team of teachers who sit on this committee started putting in the evidence of, like, we have this and we are doing this and we have this piece of evidence, it was quite a lengthy list of things that we could say with confidence that are lining right up with our school values as well. Our curriculum. We've come a long way I will tell you that when you look at our report in 2015 to where we are now, the faculty has worked tremendously hard. The engagement of 21st century learning expectations was something, technology was a huge part of this particular standard, and that you can see it now in all facets of our curriculum. And really, this was an interesting area because in the curriculum standard, it had a lot about senior internships because of the curriculum of our internship program, and that we were really quite happy with what we have done or what has been accomplished with engaging 21st century learning. So those were the big ticket items. What's important to note is those 42 recommendations are spread out through all 7 of those documents. And some of them were really more of a modest checkoff, but what I'm sharing with you is just some of those real big ticket items that NEASC really has been coming back to us each and every time in every progress report to say, we want more. We're not satisfied with what you're sharing. We want to see more of what you're doing. In our instruction, this one we were, I will say, had probably the most recommendations that we had to respond to. And I will tell you that this was the area that we took a huge hit in 2013 with that NEASC report. We had very strong evidence of the professional development, and I will tell you, which is a thanks to the district, the amount of professional development and the enhancement of what we're offering to our teachers has been profound. And you could see it through all the evidence that we were providing in that NEASC report. And you just see some of the samplings of technology to best practices to assessment, the faculty expositions, which is that train the trainer model that we were really sharing with our teachers, teaching in a block schedule, and of course our teaching like a champion this year we thought was really an important element to add, is also just the integration of 21st century learning, which is important to note because the NEASC expectations is that 21st century learning is woven through everything that you do. Assessment. This was an area that, again, had significant numbers of recommendations, and I think we've chipped away at many of them. The Senior Archive Project was launched, our continued growth of professional learning communities, and I'll tell you that we as a school, it's been an interesting journey with these because we really believe that if you have a school that is highly functioning, everything you do is a professional learning community. So it's really about creating that culture for us to say that no matter what we're doing, it is a professional learning community, instead of simply saying this hour of the day is when we are going to be that professional learning community. The professional development of the faculty symposiums, which has been an evolution in process. I wouldn't say that these things have been successful, but it has really allowed us to really identify what is important for us. Our use of data have increased in our use of assessment, and of course the ongoing conversation about grading practices and policies. This is the rejected standard. I thought it was important to just you for school committee to see what was rejected by our NEASC committee. This was a standard that was asking all of us as a school to make sure that when we were looking at, say, the expectation of problem solving, that we were calibrating ourselves within departments. And this was based upon when NEASC came in 2013, we had adopted rubrics. So history had so many, and science had so many, and so on. And we realized this was no longer how we were running business for us. So this particular expectation or recommendation, we rejected it. But when you reject it, you also have to be able to show a rationale as to why. And that the script that I have there for you is really exactly what we took right out of the NEASC report. And just for your knowledge base of just really now we no longer have adopted rubrics. They really now are transcending every aspect of our school. School culture and leadership, the engagement of our core values and beliefs into all facets of the school community. This particular subcommittee felt really confident in that. The elimination of our college tech prep level, which was early in our practice, but it really has now become foundational in our school because we needed a journey of phasing the program out, and now we no longer have that. The creation of Project Success, which was a huge facet of this particular standard, as well as the advisory program and the continuation of professional development. You'll see this in every single one of the standards is because that we have been able to really attach our PD opportunities, whether in-house, from the district or from off-site opportunities for our teachers, which has been really quite wonderful to see. School resources for learning, the significant work of the guidance department. You'll see a lot of the recommendations and the evidence is really speaking to what the guidance department has been able to accomplish. We were able to create a confidential space for the school nurse, which was a huge red flag for us in 2013. We were able to do that. The enhancements of resources in the library, we took a huge hit in 2013 about our library and what we had in it, what we didn't. And that thanks to the school district for really making sure that we could enhance the resources for our students. And then, of course, we wanted to make sure we added in our most recent addition to the school is our counseling center. It's important to note that in the 2015 report is where the one-to-one initiative was placed in because we knew it was coming. So it's highlighted in there, but I wanted to make sure that for our community, they're seeing the most recent of additions to what that report is. And lastly, just our community resources for learning. This one really is the focus on the facility of the high school. But it's important to note there's some other areas to this. The enhancement of the current school space, from the renovation of the library, the Futures program, technology improvements, the counseling center, operational budget for PD, which was huge for us, and really just thank you to the district for that. Also the budget process. In our NEASC report in 2013, teachers felt they had zero voice in a budgetary process of making selections, and we've come a long way with that. The teachers work with their department chairs. They put together wish lists. That then becomes the narrative of the high school for what we submit to the school district for our yearly budget. And then, of course, there's been significant evidence that had to be submitted for NEASC of the new high school building project. They wanted to be able to see significant evidence to be able to say the fact that that was a work in progress. And we were quite happy to be able to submit quite a lot of evidence to say that it is. So, and just the last slide, and I can take any questions or comments. I just thought it was important for the community to see the numbers of teachers that serve on this committee. It's a team that met some years every month. Other years, it was on a quarterly basis to make sure that we were keeping up with our expectations. And these teachers worked in subcommittees to make sure they were constantly collecting evidence, to make sure that we were following the pathway, to make sure when we do get into the process of waiting or designing our visit in 2023, which will be here before you know it, that we are not scrambling as we did in the past. So just a wonderful thank you to these people, because they have done a tremendous amount of work, and every year they keep coming back to do more. So just a thank you to them.
Mr. Brannigan, these aren't just your department chairs. These are faculty, assorted faculty from throughout the building.
Yep.
Who think it's important and a task that is worth investing a great deal of time beyond the school day on this NEASC project. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Professional development days, especially this year with the 5-year report, we needed to carve in time for the team to be able to do their work. After school meetings, many of these subcommittees were meeting on their own time outside of the meeting time to make sure that they were going through the recommendations. We have supplied for you as a committee our roadmap, our traffic light, which is our document that we've used to manage all of these recommendations to make sure that when we have met something or we're in progress, and it's been the job of these people to make sure that they owned their standard and to make sure the fact that we were getting to as many of our green lights and that traffic light to make sure that we have met our expectations. So thank you to them.
Mr. Brannigan, please.
Mr. Brannigan, when's the next step for this process?
Sure. So now we just wait. So the NEASC committee will now kind of just go dormant for a little while. We're anticipating our report was due March 1st. And I'm assuming that we'll receive something back before the end of the school year. And what that will tell us is things that they will say that this is great, that we're really happy to see. I would envision there would be more special progress reports that will come out of that they want to see, especially for the ones we have not completed. As you remember in there, I think we have 12 that were in progress. So now this will become the next benchmark is now the visit. And what's important to note for the committee as well as the community is that what we experienced in 2013 will be no longer, that the whole NEASC process has changed. So when we're getting ready for the visit in 2023, it will be very, very different. But I also think that the new changes that have come in NEASC are going to work much better for schools. And they're now looking to align with what the school's needs and wants and areas of desire are, rather than pigeonholing every school into what their standards are, which I think is wonderful. But so I would anticipate many more progress reports to come. And this group will continue their work right up through the visit in 2023, hopefully with many of the same people on it. So,
Paul, I just want to thank you. I know how much work this process is, and for those who don't know, when NEAS sends out letters, they send out letters to Paul, myself, and to Mr. Lynch outlining what they like and what they don't like and what they'd like to see changed. And I think the exciting part of 2023 is they are going to walk into the new high school and see how that aligns with the 21st century vision that we've all talked about tonight. So, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Brannigan, have you had any discussions with NEASC about the new building and about, I know that you've documented it. Have they sent notice of congratulations saying this
They
is a big
have.
step in your progress towards
Yes. In many of the special
physical
progress-
facilities being a big,
Absolutely, they have, especially in the progress reports. What they wanted to be able to know the status of our high school project. And this was way back from the very beginning when we were invited into the feasibility study. And they wanted to see reports every time. What is different about this particular time is they've always just wanted to see that we were in process. But now that we're at this 5-year report, they've been monitoring where we're at, and they've been noticing the fact, well, feasibility should now be done. Now we're looking for that to see, did the town vote? What is the next process? What are the designs? What does the education plan look like? So those were all pieces of evidence that were sent into NEASC in this particular report.
good, they're on top of things, which is good.
If you don't mind, Mr. Lynch, I'd just like to switch our agenda just for 1 second while Paul's up here, and go into, we were going to talk about the MSBA update and talk about the high school. Many times when we come, and this is a perfect segue into your last comment, Paul, many of the times Mr. Lynch and I try to convey what's happened at our building meetings and things like that, since the real process has been the nitty-gritty of essentially we are less than a month away from the design of the new high school. I was wondering if you could just talk a little about that, because that's really been, most of the time when we look at it, we all submit our ideas or our thoughts, but it really, we spend a lot of time turning at Paul, going, Paul, is this okay with you? Does this make sense to you? And so I just wanted to
Is
ask.
this consistent
Right.
with your
Is
vision
it-
and
right,
the
exactly.
education plan?
And so I was just asking if you
Yeah.
could talk a little about that process.
I will tell you, for never going through this experience before, to watch our architectural team take an education plan and really a scatter plot, for lack of a better word, of a vision, and watch them now start putting it into renderings of your scene of the interior of that building. It is unbelievable to see. And those working meetings in particular are quite exciting, because every one of those working meetings is another piece of the puzzle that's coming together. What I have found to be so unbelievable about our project management team and the architectural team is how they listen. And if it's okay to give an example, because I just think it is really just a testament of how hard they're working to make sure that this high school really speaks to our town. The gym renderings were starting to come out, and you were starting to see what the gym was looking like. And keep in mind for the community that we have a really nice setup for a weight room and a fitness center that's on the second floor of the building, and with glass walls that look down into the gym. And through some of the work we were doing, our athletic director in particular really raised some concerns with it, and it was really very excellent concerns that were raised. And walking out of that meeting, you just didn't know whether or not what was going to come back. So weeks later go by, I get a phone call saying, do you think that Mr. Sylvia would be available to come to this meeting? They created the ability to have, it's not moving, still the weight room's on the second floor, but they created this ability that it seems as though that they're not separated. So envision this glass wall that goes floor to ceiling with this staircase that goes up towards that second floor to where those weight rooms are. It made this unbelievable connection between the gym proper and the second floor of the building of where these are. Also, just never mind the presence when you walk into that part of the building. And that's just one of many. The work they've done in the auditorium, the learning commons is unbelievable. And that was really a vision of having it be an incredibly flexible space for students to be. And every rendering they've come back with, they've nailed it. And it has really just been quite exciting to see. Even to our landscape architects as well, that have done really a marvelous job of really capturing the essence of what Sachem Pride is in our athletic fields and the grounds of the new high school. Has just really been quite something. So a thank you to them and to the rest of the committee, because it's been quite a cool process to see a vision come to life as well.
Paul, I think while I sat here and listened to you and listened to Brian tonight, one of the things that popped up to me is when we talked about the visioning session and the people who participated in the visioning session, I really believe that we really need to retain those people, and I really believe they should be the first people to walk through the new building, because they were the ones who truly designed the new building. And as I sit here and think about it, I think it would be a perfect end to that process to have those people walk through and see what their 3 nights at Boston Tavern created.
It's like a dream come true.
Oh, absolutely.
It really is.
The February faculty meeting, the architects shared with me a PowerPoint to share with the teachers so they could see some of the renderings. And there wasn't a lot of reaction to it. There was just, I didn't really know what the reaction was. So after the fact, I had said to some of the teachers, what did you think of the building? And their response was, I couldn't even envision that that's what I'm going to be walking through when it's here. So I think they were quite pleased with just what the potential could be.
Forward, we have to have submission by April. But the conversation that we've had is that after April, we're going to bring the team here and to the selectmen and have them do a presentation so the community again can start to see what it looks like. As Paul said earlier, I think you're going to be amazed. We've spent a lot of time talking about little things and then seeing how they put them together and what the interior of this building will look like and what this building looks like. It's pretty amazing. And it's crazy.
Mr. Chair, before Mr. Brannigan goes, sort of an emotional day at the high school. When I arrived at the high school, I knew the bells were down, the intercom was down, and still we had the student-led assembly that was going to happen. But word got out to all the students, and it went very well. But if you might have a couple of comments from the principal point of view with regard to how this went today.
Sure. I really couldn't be more proud of our student body. When the students began their planning, they really wanted to make sure that it was a remembrance event, and they did that. And I think what they communicated to the rest of the student body was really outstanding. And I would be lying if I said, and Owen knows this, that I was incredibly anxious. And I think for any high school principal anywhere, it was an anxious time. Because there's a lot of uncertainty, and but once again, you always, if you put trust and faith in your kids, they always rise to the occasion, and boy, did they do that today. And even for the students who chose not to participate, highest respect for them, that they really wanted to make sure that they had their choices. And we had students who chose not to participate in the walk, but they went into the auditorium, and I thought that was fine. And really what I took away from their walk out was really just the fact that they had the ability to walk out of a school and walk back in. And those 17 people who they were honoring today and memorializing didn't have the opportunity to do that. And I just thought that was, and what was so impressive was it was completely silent. That student body, they listened to each other. And from the moment that they walked out of their class to the moment that they walked out of the auditorium, you didn't hear a word, which I just thought was so impressive. So just a thank you to them, a thank you to the faculty, to the parents for supporting an event that was not about a position. It was really just about really showing a solidarity and support to a school that we hope to God would never happen here. And I think that's all you can ask for. So.
Thank you, Mr. Brannigan. Moving on, Mr. Chair, in my report, a couple of final items in my report. One is the capital projects update. I was informed by the town manager that the capital planning committee did make a recommendation on one capital planning item that we had placed in, which was the replacement of the LAN switches in this building, to the tune of approximately $95,000, with the anticipation that we will get some E-rate money back from the government with regard to that program. We had, as you know, through Budget Subcommittee knows, we had also asked, there was an ask from a number of other areas within the school district, including a minivan bus, repaving of the back of the complex, and some additional technology at the elementary level. But all of those three things could not be, they were considered, I would tell you that. They were not favorably voted upon by the Capital Planning Committee, which is sort of basically being a little bit more conservative this year with money. we were told. So those LAN switches will be a recommendation from the capital planning to the town meeting vote in April, and that's when we'll find out if we definitely get that money for those E-rates. So for that LAN switches, it will be subsidized through E-rate money, excuse me. That's the capital projects update. I don't know if anybody has any other questions. I know that probably makes a little bit more sense to the budget subcommittee, but that is one of the items. So it is an additional $100,000 outside of the operational budget of the school system that we will receive, and we're thankful for the town for that with the vote in April if that does go through. Mr. Stevens.
Can I comment? I think those LAN switches were, necessary, because they were becoming obsolete, and if something went down, there may be an inability to fix it, so I'm glad that got approved.
And this is a beautiful building that's well-maintained, but it has an infrastructure that's nearing 20 years old. And we found out with the boilers, we're going to have to do some steady preventive maintenance, and that includes technology also. So that needs to be done. So any questions on that? Thank you. And finally, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I did provide a narrative in your drop boxes of my goal updates with regard to my 2017-2018 student learning and professional practice goals. Hopefully you have a chance to read those. That can be obviously part of my evaluation process. If anybody has any questions on them through this item on the committee here or for the committee, any items, any input from the committee with regard to my goals would be welcomed at this point. So I don't know if you've had a chance to read them.
I would add to the committee this. Superintendent's goals are essentially set as part of the first new superintendent's induction program. And so Brian will graduate from that program this year, hopefully, as long as you make the grade. And the thing I raised to the committee is over the summertime, the committee will need to meet with Brian and establish a brand new set of goals that aren't really, these are all given to us as part of the induction ceremony. These are the goals that we're going to use for the next 3 years and these will have to be new goals, and these will have to, this will be the first time that we really spend a lot of time working together to establish goals. And so I just want to raise that to the committee to let them know about that. Any questions about these particular set of goals? I mean, mostly everyone's seen them. They've been part of a couple of evaluations, so if you've been around for a while, Greg, they're probably newer to you. But I think they're self-explanatory, and Brian does a really nice job of talking about what he's done to achieve the goals over the period of time. So I really appreciate that, Brian.
And I will continue in my future goals to basically the spirit of these goals, effective direction setting and communication with the school committee and working with district leadership. And so those will continue. They may take slightly different forms, but these are a guide, really, I think, for any superintendent on any given year in any school district in Massachusetts or across the country with regard to the basics of what a superintendent should be working on and working on effectively. And if not effectively, if I'm not meeting these goals, then I should not be in this role, is what it comes down to. So I'll expand these, I'll change them, I'll alter them in some instances, but you'll see some of the same goals. Maybe we assume that the Friday Flash will continue, and maybe we go for something different into the communication piece or whatever that might be. So any input you might have via email or phone or through the chair or to me directly in any way is appreciated. So,
Greg, thank you.
On the next set of goals that you make, will there be some thought about, like, these are, I think you had a 3-year arc because of the induction program in your contract, but now you have a 5-year plan time frame. Are you going to do a 5-year, like?
No, I'll do annual goals. Yeah, I'll do annual goals. I'll give you an example of what I was talking about. Goal number 1 is called continued effective direction setting, and it's continuing through the spring of 2018. Middleborough Public Schools will have broad agreement from key stakeholders groups about the district's most critical needs, the strategies and goals that will address them most effectively, and the measures that will be used to assess progress. That was basically the development of the strategy for continuous district improvement, but that will continue, and that will go on. That's a 5-year plan. So there'll continue to be a goal with regard to that, you can no doubt. But I will definitely do annual goals. That's my intent, because things will change. I'm sure that for 2020, 2021, there'll be a specific goal probably about the transition to a new high school. So there will be annual year-specific goals, if you will, fiscal year goals, and those will shake form. And these are agreed upon, too. So it's not like negotiations, but it's sitting down and saying, what should I be focusing on for this year? What is your opinion as a school committee? And I think that's an important role for you folks, too. So-
I also would say this, if you look at the document, the continuous district improvement, I think that there are lots of, I think in some respects, and Brian, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the committee should really place emphasis on pieces that they really like and might want to see get done, for example, might want to see get done next year. You know, hey, can you put your focus on this particular piece?
Yeah.
Can you put your focus on that particular piece? And goals can spring forth from there over a shorter period of time. But again, it would be it's a cooperative effort. You know, the establishment of goals, I think, is really hard, because the main thing you want to do is you want to establish a goal that can be achieved. You know, you don't want to establish a goal that says something along the lines of, we'd like to see an increase in student learning. Okay, well, how do we measure that? You know what I mean? It has to be measurable and has to be actionable.
Well, the acronym, as some teachers in the audience know, is SMART. They need to be SMART goals. They need to be specific, measurable, attainable, and all of the above. So it's important that we do that. It's important that they're aligned with what the committee feels. It's important they're aligned with the strategy for continuous district improvement. It is definitely a trickle down and a bubble up in terms of what goes on in the school system. At each district team leadership meeting, we talk about specific activities with regard to the strategy. I would share with you that at the most recent meeting, we talked about the culture of well-being. And we've asked all of the administrators to contribute to the strategy in terms of what's going on in their schools with regards to the culture of well-being and where they're at each process and what's going on. There will be an impetus with regard to possibly school safety as a goal going down the road for next year, because obviously that's going to be something that's critical as we move towards a new high school and as we look at our current 4 buildings, and 4 school buildings, I would say. So there are a lot of year-specific goals and situational goals, if you will, sometimes from year to year. But that definitely is driven by the larger picture, which is obviously the school committee and the strategy for continuous district improvement. And we'll go from there. So,
Greg.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Lynch, I just want to thank you. Your goals, being the newcomer to this committee, reading through your goals and reading through your self-evaluation, you're very specific on different things that you have achieved, and it was very easy for me, someone new to this process, to be able to follow. So when making my evaluations to give to the chair, that would be very, very helpful, because I've seen a lot of these things in just even my short time happen. So thank you for that.
and I'll expand on this even further, I think, with regard to the full self-assessment. I'll also be completing that for the committee as they prepare the next document piece, which is coming up for the April 5th school committee meeting. So, yeah.
Any other questions? I'm just wondering, does anyone have anything in addition that they'd like to talk about MSBA? Other than, I thought it was good to just have Paul talk and share where he's going through, because I think that's important. Any other questions about that? Oh, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just want to update the folks at home with regard to our calendar. As you know, I often use the term school is canceled. It's really not canceled, it's postponed. It's canceled for high school seniors, but that's about it. So the days are postponed, and right now we are on our last day of school will be June 26th. June 26th, so that's the current last day of school. So with happy, fun snow days come the payback, which ends up in the end of June and cutting into my beach time.
Well,
So-
and I would point out to people, I think it's important now that we're having this conversation about we're moving to almost the end of June. We do this because we heard from the community that they didn't want to start before Labor Day. So it's a give and take. While you lose your beach days at the end of June, there's a gaining of the beach days at the end of August.
Correct.
So it's a mix, and sometimes you run into it, and this has been a particularly bad time.
Yep, and this is, we've had basically 4 days.
And hopefully we're over with that.
Well, 5 days now, I believe, 5 days. We've had five weather days. We had a day October 30th, which was that horrible windstorm. We live in a town that has 70 square miles and umpteen miles of roads, a lot of it country back roads, obviously with wires above the street in most instances. And when a tree falls on a wire and breaks a pole, or people lose power, and there's all kinds of circumstances. So there's a lot of factors that go into deciding whether or not to have school, and these past couple of days that we had this week were certainly days that were certainly appropriate not to have school, I feel. So.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. The superintendent's evaluation. So what will happen from this point, you will get a packet. That packet should come, and as the superintendent said, it will come with more detailed information from him. We will be going over that individually. If it's due to the chair April 5th, at that meeting, the chair will then compile all the information into one form. My assumption would be that that would be some point in May, given how that'll be a meeting after, the next meeting is the meeting after the election, so there's a reorganization and piece of that, so it takes some time to figure out and do.
So, Mr. Chair, if you don't
Please.
mind, there are two ways to go about it, as you know, and I think the school committee needs to just identify which way you want to go about it. Do you want to collect them as a chair and summarize, or are you going to ask for individual summaries at the meeting? That's the,
I believe I've heard through most of the committee members individually that they would like to just give them to me and I would summarize. Does that seem everything? I know people have mentioned it to me in the past, and we would do that, and I would come with one summarization. Clearly, you would vote on my summarization, and people can. We're still voting the individual things and capturing the number. I'll just have it pre-prepared. Obviously, if somebody thought I was missing something, we could add it, or the chair, I should say the chair, whoever the chair is. I would also add that it's, as I said to committee members in the past, what would happen is, for example, I know committee members enjoy the Friday Flash, and so it wouldn't be listed every committee member's comment about the Friday Flash. It would be listed, the school committee enjoys the Friday Flash, that kind of thing. Clearly, it would list every sort of different perspective that was out there, because I think that's important. And that, obviously, if there are issues or if there are concerns raised, that would be part of also formulating the goals for the following year.
Yep.
So I just, does that make sense to everybody?
I think, say
Sure,
something?
please do.
Through you, Chair. Yeah, I think in the years past, when we did this evaluation, I think it was too cumbersome to try to go through every line item, and everybody had to say their piece about it. And I think, each of us individually, we're just citizens, but it's only the committee together that votes an evaluation, that's the key piece. So I agree with this procedure. And we can all speak up at the meeting if we dissent with the majority opinion or whatever. I mean, I think we can always individually comment at that point.
And to be honest with you, when I was on a previous school committee, this is the way it was done before, which is everyone submitted their information. It was sort of a combined piece on the evaluation. I will say this, I enjoy the evaluation that they give because it's the same evaluation throughout the Commonwealth. So superintendents are evaluated exactly the same. Before, you would have to negotiate an evaluation with the principal, the superintendent, and then figure out what form you wanted to use and piece like that. So this makes it a little better. So.
All right, Mr. Chair, are we voting on that?
I don't think we have to. I mean, it's.
No, I meant for next time. Will we be doing the evaluation next time?
April 5th. We're not going to vote on the evaluation April 5th.
Okay.
As, again, my assumption, you're going to turn them in April 5th.
Okay.
So you can bring them that night and hand them to me, and we'll take care of them. But my assumption is it probably won't occur until May.
And it will also be an electronic document that they can submit electronically to you if they'd like.
Yes. So whatever is easier for you, it doesn't matter. And then I will submit it. It'll be part of your packet in May at some point when we go through this whole process, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
MASC, I just put two things up there. There's the Day on the Hill, which is April 25th. As of right now, the superintendent and I are attending. If people are interested, please let me know. And then the only other thing I wanted people to know about was the dates of the MASC, MASS conference, which is the 7th through the 10th. I would also say to people, I know most of you teach and have teaching jobs, but you can also attend one day of the conference. And so if that works out for you personally or professionally, that's fine. The only thing I'll say is there's a pay early date, and it's usually some point by the end of this fiscal year. So that's why I wanted to bring it up at there.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the Day on the Hill, to the rest of the committee, it's basically a day spent listening to representatives and senators from Massachusetts all throughout the Commonwealth, talking about the future of the budget, talking about the foundation budget, a chance for superintendent and school committees to meet with representatives in offices and see the actual representatives in action, and really sort of walk through the hallways with the Chairman Rich Young and all the senators and congressmen, calling them by name, saying, "Hi, Rich, how are you? Nice to see you, Rich."
So it makes it interesting.
I feel like I'm connected when I'm in the State House with Mr. Young, so.
It's a fun time. We have a good time. And MSC and MASS do a really good job of setting that up, and so it's interesting. We took care of the action items. The only thing I do want to make a comment tonight. It's, we get a lot of retirements and people leaving,
But this list, Mr. Chair, if you
yes.
don't mind, contains 7 career teachers here in Middleborough. And I want to read their names, if that's okay with you. Joyce Martin is a teacher at the Henry B. Berkland School. John Cardoza is a second language teacher within the district, also a former principal here in town. Sue Miller is a teacher at Middleborough High School. Sue Robertson is a teacher at Middleborough High School. Charlene Bizankokis is a special education teacher at Middleborough High School. Joe McKenna is a teacher at Middleborough High School. And Teresa Falconer is a teacher at John T. Nichols Middle School, a technology teacher. So those are 7 folks who've made their careers here. Many of them have worked between 30 and 35 years, in some instances maybe a little bit longer. And we certainly appreciate all of their work and their contributions to all of the students throughout the years. I know, having 3 daughters having gone through the school system, they've known each of these teachers at some point, and we really appreciate all of the work these folks have done throughout the years, and we wish them well in their retirement.
And they are an exceptional group of people. There have been very few times that I have seen a list like this that stop and make you pause. And I would also point out to people that there are many of these teachers doing additional work that, for example, we have talked about the replacement of Mr. Cardoza. That is going to be a replacement that we cannot do with one single person. We're going to have to do with multiple people, and that's the type of person we're losing, and it's sad. But good for them, because they've worked hard, done their time, and we wish them well in their next endeavors. So
We have AP teachers. We have Joyce Martin, who has run the elementary piece to the mentor program for years and years. And just a lot of contributions from all of these people that you can never replace these people and the contributions they've made, but we work hard to try to find the best people we can to live up to their standards, I guess. So we look forward to that process also.
anything else that anyone has before I move into executive session briefly? Our next school committee meeting will be Thursday, April 5th, 2018. The chair will entertain a motion to enter into an executive session to conduct a strategy session in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining or contract negotiation with non-union personnel. This will be for the Director of Business and Finance contract, and we will only come back to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Second. Requires a roll call vote. Greg? Megan? Aye. Greg?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you very much. That's cool.